Well, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I had hoped for a full house because we appreciate that people are passionate enough to come to a town hall meeting to find out more information about recycling or the school bond, or both, because they're both important to our community. I'm Mayor Tammy DeViert, and I appreciate you being here. I did see a couple of our city council members, Councilman Kavanagh in the very back, Councilman Trey Burnt, who is our newest city council member, standing next to Councilmember Milam, and I believe I saw Councilmember Lowell Roberts as well, in the very back as well. So thank you to our council members for joining us too. This is certainly something that has been on our minds since we learned about the recycling issues in the end of November. And I know that our Citizens Solid Waste Advisory Commission has been active ever since, trying to respond and come up with recommendations to bring back to our city council members. So we look forward to hearing from our public tonight. In addition to our city council members, we have several of our department directors, and we have our HR manager, Crystal Ritchie, and our public works director, Dell Bolthouse. So if you will join me in welcoming our council and our department directors. I also want to give special thanks to Commissioner Rick Visser from Ada County. He is here tonight. He's been doing several posts about recycling and some of the challenges that Ada County, we're just one city within Ada County that is having to address our plastics ban, I think, and Commissioner Visser has been very vocal about the challenges, trying to help educate on what we can do to be good stewards of our environment. Oh, we're already past the slide I thought I would be on. I guess I should pay attention to the slide, shouldn't I? Tonight we'll be talking about two big topics. First, we'll be talking about a school bond and levy vote that will be out in March that is going to be a big deal for our West Ada School District. I don't know how many of you know that our school district is 385 square miles large. It represents 5 of our cities and parts of 2 of our counties. So it's the largest school district in the state of Idaho. It's got 36,000 students, 34,000 students, 40,000 students. Oh my gosh, a lot of students. And so totally responding to the growth pressures that our Treasure Valley is dealing with. The second big topic that we'll be talking about is recycling. And so after that, we'll have time for questions, or we can take questions after each topic. 2 weeks from today, we'll have the State of the City. This is a community forum. It's free, and we welcome you to join us at 429 at Meridian Middle School. Last year and years prior, it was held at 3:59, but the public said, would you hold it like a half hour later? So 4:29 it is. It is free. There is a taste of Meridian that follows immediately. That does cost $10, and you can get tickets online on our website. It's a great date night. So all you gentlemen, start thinking Valentine's Day. Come out and learn all the great things about Meridian, and then take your favorite person out for a taste of Meridian, and join us in tasting some of your favorite restaurants here in the city of Meridian. This next one is a big one. So none of us enjoy paying property taxes. Well, some do. I actually had someone that told me that. I hugged him. But, you know, unfortunately, the schools have only one tool to deal with buildings, and that is bonds. We have gone with the school district on a number of occasions to the state legislature to ask for greater tools, whether they're growth impact fees, title transfer fees, or other innovative ideas, and we have yet to have been successful at getting more tools. The bottom line here is that the state has a constitutional mandate to provide a fair, uniform, and thorough public education. And we think with the growth that's being experienced here in the Treasure Valley, should be reinvested back into the valley so that you won't be asked all the time for these bonds to build new schools because of the overcrowding. But in the meantime, this is the tool that the only tool the school has in order to respond. So Eric Exline is here to give you some information behind why they're coming to you and asking for you to weigh in on a bond and a levy proposition.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to the city for inviting me. I will add on to the comment about trying to find other tools. We're actually working on some legislation to see if we can get the state to match some of the costs of building new schools and get some of the growth money to come back. But in the meantime, I want to talk to you about kind of the state of West Ada, why we have two measures on the March 13th ballot, and at the end I'll answer any questions you have. So some of this is going to be hard to see, but that's okay. I've given this presentation so many times, I probably have it memorized. On the left, that map is most of West Ada. I'm going to show you a little bit more of it later on in the presentation. The funny little shaped kind of specks you see on it are homes that have been approved to be built by the 5 cities and the 2 counties that we serve. So right now on the map, there's 14,582 approved residential homes, and using the census number of 0.8 kids per household, that means we're going to generate 11,665 new students in the West Ada School District. If we follow our historic trend, that'll come about 1,000 new kids a year. And when we pass 47,000, we will be larger than the Seattle School District, and we'll be in the 100 largest school districts in terms of enrollment in the United States of America. All of that's compounded, or is the reality of life, that now Idaho, according to the Census Bureau, is the fastest growing state as a percentage of any state in the United States, and most of that's happening in the Treasure Valley. And of course, Meridian and West Ada is kind of the center of the Treasure Valley, so a lot of that growth is happening here. And you can see that by the number of home sites that have been approved to be built. I've tracked that number for years. That's the highest I've ever seen it. Prior to the recession, I would often see a number between 13 and 14,000, but I never saw more than 14,000. So it's a reality. This is a great place to live. I understand why people are coming here. We have nice cities and lots of opportunities for kids. So that's kind of the big picture. We'll go to the next slide. So in order to try and keep up, we've proposed a bond that, again, will be on the March 13th ballot. And I'm going to kind of walk through the projects that are on there and talk to you a little bit about why. The first is a high school. Currently, 4 of our high schools are over capacity, some of them significantly. Rocky Mountain High School is almost 600 kids over what it was built for. Mountain View is over by 428. Centennial is about at capacity. Eagle High is 306 over. If this bond is approved, it would open in 2020. At that point, I would tell you that I bet Eagle High School is 500 over. It's been growing by about 100 kids a year. Rocky, not so much, but it is still growing. And then just to give you kind of a sense of the scope of the West Ada School District, the purple on that map is Meridian High's attendance area alone. That's 35 square miles. It has more than 8,000 approved home sites. That'll generate more than 2,000 high school kids just in that high school's attendance zone. So here's the total proposal, and again, I'm going to walk through each of the projects. Up at the top, a little bit about our enrollment. So in fall of 2016, we grew by 830 kids. This fall, we grew by 891. During the recession, that number did drop. We were, and other districts kind of laugh at me when I say only, we were only growing by, say, 400 or 500 students. Prior to the recession, we had a couple years where we grew by as many as 1,500 and 1,800 students from fall to fall. So we're heading back toward our 20-year average. Somebody asked me about that. I said, well, I started 20 years ago and we had 20,000 kids. And now it's 20 years later and we have 40,000 kids, and we've opened 21 schools in that time frame to keep up with that. So the proposal includes a high school for $60 million, an expansion in Mountain View for $8 million, in addition to Mary McPherson, one of our elementary schools, for $1 million, a significant addition to Star Elementary, which is $7 million, and New Elementary is $16 million, and then land to buy future school sites because we're going to need a lot more of them as growth continues. So a little bit about the new high school. The building that I'm showing you is actually Ridgeview High School, which is located in the Valley View School District. We selected those designers to help us with the work on it because they've built that school 4 times and we went and toured it. It's a nice facility. It's adequate. It's not tremendously fancy, but it's very utilitarian. It will have capacity for 1,800 or 2,000 kids. Since this is West Ada, someday it'll have 2,400 for a while. I'm just sure of it. It will be located on the north side of Ustick, kind of the intersection of Ustick and McDermott. So we're heading west now, and I'll talk about that growth here in a bit. And an advantage of picking this prototype, we'll save money on the design of it because since it's already a design plan other than a little modification that we'll make to it, we pay a lesser percent to the architect fees. But also because of that, if we're going to get this building open by 2020 and try and help those high schools I talked about, we need to put out bids after the bond if it passes shortly thereafter. So we have 24 months to construct it, which is the amount of time you need to build a high school. Next slide. Oh, again, there's the cost. We're proposing a new elementary school. It will be built like the elementary schools that, again, in West Ada, we tend to pick a design we like and we keep building it over and over again. We've been building the same elementary school since the mid-90s. We modified it slightly in the early 2000s. It'll have a capacity of for 650 students. The yellow dot where it's located, that's on the east side of Black Cat between Chinden and McMillan. It's on land that was donated by the developers of the Bainbridge and Bridge Tower West subdivisions. And it's sitting in one of the largest growing areas in the district. Ultimately, the square mile in which it sits will have enough houses that it will fill that elementary school alone. It won't open that way. It'll have a larger attendance area. But in West Ada, typically a square mile of large residential is enough to fill a school of that size. And again, its cost is $16 million. Then we're going to do an expansion at Mountain View to try and give that school enough space to accommodate the kids that it has and maybe a little bit more. They're at 2,228 right now. So this will add 20 classrooms. This is actually a plan that existed way back in 2003 when the building opened. It was over budget at the time, so it was cut off. That reduction in the building at the time also shrunk the cafeteria, so it expands the cafeteria. If anybody of you know kids who attend school there, mine did. You eat lunch in the band room or you sit on the hallway floors because it's not worth trying to get through the cafeteria mostly. So it'll expand that and add 20 classrooms. It gives the school a capacity of 2,400, so a little bit of room to accommodate the growth it's getting. A little bit about West Ada, if I was up there, I'd point at it more, but the map you're seeing is now showing you the part of West Ada that you don't typically see on the map, where it's heading off to the east, and there's kind of a corner over there. That's at the Eisman interchange by Micron. So Cunamora Road runs through the middle of the district, and then it goes way south into the desert. Now, a lot of that's BLM land. It'll never be developed, but the stuff around Cunamora is all in the West Ada School District. Prior to the recession, there were some plans for some really big planned communities out there, population estimates of 50,000. So we're going to need to plan for schools out in that area, And part of this proposal, the $3 million, is probably to look for a middle and elementary school site out in that southeast part of the school district so that we're ready and we can try and buy the land before it gets really expensive. I'll give you an example of that. We found a parcel out there, kind of Lake Hazel and Cole Road. It was perfect size, 55, 60 acres. The guy wanted 100 grand for it. And we said, well, no, we only pay appraised value. If you let us appraise it, we'll pay you what it appraises for maybe, but he wasn't interested in that. The high school site we're building on, we purchased within the last year. We only paid $29,000 an acre for that, so we're not 100,000 just out of our ballpark, but we'll keep looking out in that area. Okay? Per acre, yeah. And when land starts to get developed, you get to those prices once development and sewer and water and all of that have reached it. So we try and get property ahead of that happening. We're proposing a pretty significant addition to STAR for a number of reasons. One, the school's current capacity is 470. They have 531 kids. They grew by 40 this year. I expect they'll grow by 40 again next year. We're accommodating that. It's a little bit hard to see in the picture, but the big silver block on the left side of that picture is the current school, and next to it is its combination cafeteria gymnasium, which was built in 1911. And the kitchen is pretty inadequate. It's very small. They don't really have enough room for all the equipment they need to serve lunch to that many kids. And then we have some portables next to it that's where we're putting the kids now. It adds the wing that you can see going off to the right in that kind of schematic rendering, and then some 6 additional classrooms that add on to the existing building going straight up. And then it also solves another issue that we have out there. The picture shows all the parking lots that STAR has. It's one of our oldest schools. And the gymnasium's the oldest building we have, but the school itself is quite old. And back then they didn't build parking lots to accommodate the staff even that you need for that many kids. So the staff are either, well, they fill up the lot and then they park on the street, or they park in the parking lot. There's a little city park right across the street. And last winter it was a real problem for snow removal. Anyways, the mayor of STAR kindly asked the assistant superintendent and myself if we could fix that and get our people out of their parking lot and off the street. So part of what this plan does, so it tears down the old gymnasium, gets rid of those portables, and then expands the parking lot significantly and puts in a bus loop that'll be much safer for student drop-off. And hopefully that's not my phone. Oh, good. And the cost of that project is $7 million. It expands its capacity by 280 kids, so it gives STAR some space to accommodate the growth for several years. And then the last building project is an addition to Mary Mac. Again, it's one of our oldest schools. It opened in 1960. It has capacity for 430. It has enrollment of 480. It's been operating for years out of the portables that you can kind of see with the brown roofs and the aerial photograph. They're okay. My kids went to school there. They did fine. They graduated college. My son's getting his master's degree now. So they got a good education there. Those portables actually go all the way back to when Meridian Middle burned in the mid-90s, and they had to run that school out of portables for a year. So the district back then, I wasn't here, but they built a whole bunch of portables, and then we started moving around. Well, their lifespan is not, it's not like a brick and mortar building. But what this proposes is doing a classroom addition on the north side of the building, kind of in the paved area. It adds 6 classrooms, space for 180 more kids. It would take the portables out. And we would also have an attempt or expand the parking lot some. That sort of tan area way over on the right is some land that the Simplot Corporation lets us use kindly. We're allowed to gravel it. We're not really allowed to pave it. We'll ask them if they're willing to sell it to us, and if they are, then we'll use that to expand the parking lot. If not, we'll expand it over to the left of the picture a little bit in that big playing field, because there's adequate space for the kids out there. So the other item that's on the up for election in March, so first there's the bond, which those were all the items I explained. And so with a bond, what that means is the district is asking voters to give the school district authority to sell bonds, use the proceeds from it to build projects. And that's all you can use it for. You can't hire staff. You can't pay for light bills. You can only pay for the construction of stuff. And then you pay that those bonds off over 20 years. It's a little bit like a home mortgage. And in order for that to be approved, 66 2/3 of the voters have to vote yes. So that's the bar on a bond. There's also a supplemental levy. A supplemental levy is a levy that is just raised annually that provides operating funds for the district. So we use that to hire teachers or to pay electric bills or buy books. So it just goes into our general fund budget and helps support what we do. This is giving you the history of it. The district had supplementals back in the 80s. I wasn't here then, so I can't tell you the story of what that was about. But we ran another one in 2005. It was a $5 million supplemental. And we used it to hire 25 teachers above what we qualify for from the state. There's kind of a formula that says if you have this many kids, here's how many teachers you get. And we actually hired above the state to try and reduce our class sizes some. And we used a little bit of it to start the International Baccalaureate program that's at Renaissance High. We continue that for 2 years later, and the amount was $10 million. We again hired those teachers, and we invested a fair amount of money in new technology and curriculum. Did that again in 2009. Then in 2011, we proposed a pretty significant increase as the state was cutting our budget a bunch. That was not approved by voters, and as a result, we cut 14 calendar days, so 9 of those were school days, 5 of them were staff development days, and then we saved money on the corresponding salaries. That's how that saved money in the budget. We instituted participation fees in athletics, so now you pay $110 to participate in each sport, up to 2. If you're a 3-sport athlete, you don't pay for the 3rd one. We eliminated lots of classified and administrative positions, so we reduced the number of custodians we had. By the way, none of this happened by riffing people. All we did is if anybody left, we just didn't refill the positions. So they used to say in my office, well, be careful that the person next to you leaves because you're going to get their job, and that's true. That's what we did. And then we quit hiring teachers. We were still growing, but we didn't hire new teachers to replace it because the state loosened their rules and said, because they knew all the school districts' budgets were in trouble, well, the old rule was if you don't hire the teachers, you don't get the funding. But then they said, we know your budgets are a mess because we've cut them a lot, and they were trying to help, and they said, well, if you don't hire the teachers, we'll still give you the funding. So that helps support your budget. Well, at the worst portion of that, we were 123 teachers below what we qualify for the state. We actually had to raise our class size standards, 2 kids per grade at elementary and the class loads at the secondary. In 2012, we proposed a $14 million supplemental. It was approved. We were able to restore the 9 school days. It was approved again in 2014. We were again be able to maintain our current programs, and we started increasing our teacher staffing over a couple years. So as it was approved again in 15, now we're 42 teachers under. I think if we can continue on, we'll get to the point where we're back at what we qualify for from the state, and we've chipped away at other things that were lost. In addition to participation fees, a bunch of other like 9th and 10th grade sports were cut simply because it saved you staffing costs. We've put a bunch of those back. We're going to put some more back this year. So we just keep trying to chip away at what we lost to get back to regular teacher staffing levels and to get all our programs kind of back to where they were pre-recession. So what this proposal that'll be on the ballot in March proposes the same amount, and again, it's for 2 years. You have to reauthorize it every 2 years. So in total, it would provide $14 million a year for the 18-19 and 19-20 school years. We'd be able to maintain our current programs in operation. We'd continue our efforts to restore the number of teachers that we have, reach our goal to eliminate deficit budgeting, something that's been going on for a really long time, and then, again, keep working to restore some of those other things that we still haven't quite gotten back. I know this is hard to read, but talk a little bit about levy rates in West Ada. So it is a little bit beneficial when you're growing so much that in a way, at least growth helps keep it so the levy rate doesn't keep going up every time you need to build a new school. And I'll explain why that is, maybe you know this. So last year, the taxable property value in all of West Ada, right? So every city, the county, in between, everything that's out there, minus your homeowner exemption, they take that out because that's not taxable value, was $16.8 billion. This year it grew by $1.7 billion to $18.6. And the way that levy rates work for school districts, so we can't just increase an amount of something. We can only collect what voters have told us we can collect at the polls. So there's three things that voters have approved in West Data in the past. So we have the plant levy that was approved last March. That allows us to raise up to $16 million a year to maintain our 54 buildings and their 4 million square feet of building space. So we put on roofs, we pave stuff, we paint things, we recarpet buildings, we fix HVAC systems. Sometimes we can use it to buy land. That can only go toward capital projects or purchases. That's its only use, can't use it for staffing. And so the levy rate last year was $118.83, but because the property value went up and we also asked our voters to give us a lower authority, it was 20 million and then it went to 16, the levy went down to $85. So part of that is because we're asking for less, but part of it was because the divisor, so you take the amount you get and you divide it by the market value, and that gives you the levy rate, okay? We have a supplemental levy. It was $14 million last year. The cost of that is $82.51 per 100,000. Because the market value went up, it went down to $74.42 because you're dividing the same amount, again, by a larger number. So that helps keep the levy rate from growing every time we have to go out and ask our patrons if they'll support building another school. And if you think back, if you've been here a while, you'll remember the history of West Data. Prior to the recession, the district ran a bond in 96, 98, 2000, 2002, 2005. Because when you're growing by 1,000 kids a year, that's one middle school. If they were all middle schoolers, they're not. They come in every grade, but you get overcrowded schools everywhere. So we promised voters, if the plant passed last year, that the levy rate would drop by $24.54, and that's exactly how much it went down. Because we can use these numbers and the increase in levy rate to manage what it's going to end up being. So the current West Data School District levy rate is $377 per 100,000 taxable value. If both of these measures pass, the levy rate next year, and we've made this promise at all of those bonds and all those supplementals, will remain $377 per 100,000 of taxable value. Because the market value is going to go up, and the way I can guarantee it, and this is a promise that the district has made forever. So let's suppose that next year the market value didn't increase at all. Anybody in the room vote that that's a possibility? No, I don't either. But let's suppose that it did. And now we've taken on another bond that we have to pay, right? In order to guarantee that, because we can collect up to 16 million in plant, we would just drop that amount because we're not going to tell you one thing and do another. We've never done that. Even during the recession, when that divisor, the market value, dropped by 2/3, we never raised the levy rate because we dropped our plant from 20 million at one point to 2.6, because our board and our administration says we're not raising people's property tax rate in the middle of a recession, and we're not going to raise it above what we told you it would be. Now, I'm always completely honest about this. If the assessor comes and tells you your home is now worth $100,000 more, what I say is, congratulations, your largest asset is now worth more money. But the downside of that is you are going to multiply the levy rate times a larger number. We can promise the levy rate. I have no control over what the assessed value of a piece of property is. That's what the assessor does. So I think one more slide. I know this is really hard to read. These are the levy rates of all the school districts from Boise to the Ontario border. On the far right is Parma. They're $575 per 100,000. We are the far left. We are tied with Homedale at the lowest at $377. This district does have a history of trying to keep its levy rates low in the face of knowing that we have this issue that we have to keep building schools to keep up. And with that, a little bit about voter information. This is incredibly hard to read. Two most important points. It's March 13th. It'll be at your regular polling place wherever you voted in the last election. I think they might have changed one. But if you go to the Ada County, and the bottom line is a link, but just search Ada County elections and do yourself this incredible favor about making voting easy. Click on the thing that says absentee ballot request form. Sit at your table, fill it out. It'll ask you which of the elections for the next year you want to vote in. You fill that out, you can fax it, mail it, or actually scan it and email it back to them. And then for an entire year, you have to do it annually, they will mail you your ballot. So instead of on Tuesday, March 13th, having to go to work and then go stand in line at 5 o'clock somewhere, on Saturday, you just sat at your dining room table, filled out your ballot. It cost you 42 cents to mail it in. It's cheaper than the gas to go to the polls, right? It is an awesome way to vote. It's incredibly convenient. You will never miss an election because it'll always come in your mail. The only provision is you got to do it every year if you want to keep going. It's not forever. It's annual. And with that, if it's okay, I would take questions now. All right. I like it when I've provided so much information that no one can think of one more thing to ask for. I mean, I just got to say that. Hi. Yeah.
I want to go back 2 steps and say, if all these developments are approved, can we keep up? I mean, should we slow down approvals?
I don't actually, I mean, that's not kind of my world. My world is, as a school district, we have to do what we need to do to keep up with the people who are coming here. We've done that for 20 years. I've done 21 ribbon cuttings in the 20 years that I've been at West Ada. Growth is a healthy thing and it's a challenging thing. I mean, so I don't really have a hard yes or no answer. To me, what you're trying to do is hope that the planning and the efforts on the infrastructure, that'd be roads and schools, that in the end of the day, what we end up with is a town that we're all still really happy to live in. That's all I hope for, is that when I'm ready to retire and I'm here and I look around and I go, yeah, this is still an awesome place, I'm still gonna stay here. And that's all I hope. It's a really good question and a tough one. Any others? Yes. That's a really good question, and I'm going to do my best to pull a number out of my head because I saw it recently in the $180 million range, I believe. We're paying bonds going back to 2002. We're still paying those off. So we have a 2002 bond, a 2005 bond, and then in March of 15, there was a $96 million bond. Some of those are paid off in part. I'm close anyways. That question, by the way, or the answer to that question will be on the ballot. That's what I'm trying to visualize in my head, is what the number was when because they send us the ballot to proofread before they, go print 100,000 of them. I think I'm close anyways. Yes?
I hope I'm not digging too deep for detail here, but in trying to understand the whole concept of how the bond works, how it affects property taxes and so on and so forth. What I'm trying to understand is, as you are voting for something in anticipation of growth, it sounds like you're making a payment, or maybe it's just a down payment, on what is eventually going to be to the benefit of the people who aren't here yet.
That's a very good question. I start with showing you the big picture of growth, but the projects that were proposed, like the high school, it's because we have high schools that are incredibly overcrowded now. So that school is intended to solve that problem. The elementary school, we hope to relieve a couple schools. Hunter Elementary was built for 650. They have 800 kids. So we are trying to solve overcrowding problems that are coming. The reason I give the big picture is simply so people understand this is a continuing and cycling kind of process. Maybe a little bit to answering your question, I'm not sure if I am exactly, but it is true that you are taking, the levy rate's not going up, but you are taking on an obligation that you're going to pay it longer because they take 20 years to pay off. But we are trying to solve the overcrowding problems at a number of schools and have some space, additional space, to absorb kids that are going to come within the next 2 to 3 years. Our high school enrollment grows on average by 247 kids a year. So we will see that happen. We'll grow by 500 kids at the high school level before we even get the school open. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. I'm trying.
Ask it a slightly different way, and I'm not sure if I'm using the right term. I'm thinking of amortization. I don't know if that's the word that I'm looking for, but is the cost that goes to the present population for something that's gonna be paid over 20 years, is it,
Oh.
the amount figured out so that it's going to even out over, over the passage of time as more people move?
Yeah, actually it does. That's kind of a function of the increase in market value, because as more people come, the cost of that bond is now being spread over every household that gets opened, right? It doesn't just stay on the existing households. The cost of paying it off gets spread over every house. So when those 14,000 homes appear, they'll be all be paying a portion of the bonds that are still on the books from whatever moment they open, right? I think I'm answering the question.
Well, is the reduction in the levy amount as the property value goes up, is that because the levy value is X amount of dollars for X amount of dollars that your house is worth?
So the levy rate is what we're authorized to collect divided by the total value of the property in the district, right?
But it almost seems counterintuitive, because the value is going up, but the levy rate is going down. You almost think it would be the other way around.
Oh, yeah, no, but it's because you're taking a fixed number, what the voters said we can collect, and dividing it by a divisor that's constantly growing. And it will actually, our levy rate, our total levy rate will start to go down over time.
So I am understanding that portion of it, is that function brings it down because it's being spread out.
Yeah, correct.
But that's still spread out over the existing houses as opposed to the houses that are eventually going to be here.
Yeah, but at the rate in which they are put on the tax rolls. I think we're saying the same thing.
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
You mentioned you guys are working on a bill with the legislature that'll help future bonds.
Yeah, so we've put together a piece of legislation, and what we're going to ask, what we think would be a great idea. So we analyzed, I got data on all the bonds that have been run in the state of Idaho for the last 20 years. So it was in 78 districts, not just ours. We actually account for 18% of the total amount. And over 20 years, it was $2 billion statewide. So if you look at what $2 billion is in terms of the interest that you'll pay on that, that's probably another $900 million. It's not quite half, right, at 3.9%. The average amount of the bonds over that, well, it averaged from the low of $1 million one year to a high of 159. That's in the total amounts asked in each of those years. And the average was 53. So what we propose is the state should do a 50% match, which will cost the state out of its general fund. The taxes we're always paying. We don't think anybody should pay more sales tax or income tax. That they need to start setting aside, building a reserve. It'll take a couple years. Put away $53 million a year out of the general fund. If they had done that for the last 20 years, it would have saved property taxpayers $1 billion in the cost of the bonds that go against their property tax, and another almost $500 million in the interest that they paid. So it would have saved $1.5 billion it would have been savings for property taxpayers of $1.5 billion. I don't know if we'll get that passed, but we're going to try. It'll probably take us a couple sessions, but we just feel like there needs to be a mechanism other than it's a tax on property taxpayers all the time. And so that's what we're trying to do. All right. I thank you very much for your time and attention. And I don't know anything about the recycling thing, so I'm going to turn it over to somebody else.
Thank you. We're fortunate to have a couple of the bosses. One, Dave Fisher is the general manager at Republic Services. They are our trash contractor. And Dave Dean, who is with Western Recycling, who is our recycling processor guru. You have a new title, Dave, Guru. I want to thank Eric for spending some time to talk about the needs of the schools and how they came to the numbers that you'll be seeing on the ballots in March. We appreciate that. We appreciate that they do keep an eye to keeping their promise of what the maximum you'll see in your tax bills. And, you know, I've always been one that has supported our kids, and I think it's important to our community to have an educated workforce. So we thank you for spending some time trying to understand that. And I didn't mention earlier that Representative James Holtzclaw is with us tonight as well. And thank you, Representative Holtzclaw, for joining us. It's always nice to see elected officials come to hear what their constituents have to say. So we appreciate that. I am going to be introducing Dave Fisher, who is going to talk about the plastics. So we still are recycling paper, cardboard, aluminum cans and foil and everything else. This is just about the plastics program. And as you'll hear from Dave, this is a global issue, and across the nation, communities like ours is responding, what is this all about? Why don't we have different alternatives, and what can we do? Our Solid Waste Advisory Committee did meet earlier today, again talking about this issue. They've been talking about it for the last several months and exploring options. And I think maybe you'll hear a little bit from Mr. Fisher about some of those discussions. But I'm also on the lookout to that passionate person about recycling that would like to join a little subgroup that can brainstorm, use your passion to really help come up with some viable options of what we can be doing as a community. I love it when passionate people come together because we tap into the talent of our citizens, and we learn amazing things, and we always come up with some great ideas. So we look forward to hearing your questions after the presentation. We have Conrad here who's going to give you a demonstration. This is exciting. What you can recycle and what it looks like. And one of the things, so my husband's from the Netherlands, and they recycle. They recycle, they compost. They also get penalized, fine, when they don't do it right. And during Christmas, I had my family over. I kept pulling tissues and dirty paper plates and paper towels and all these different things out of my recycling bin saying, you can't recycle this. Oh, you can't? We need to start helping each other know what is recyclable. If you're going to take that extra time to recycle, we want to make it count. And so Conrad is going to lead us through an exercise to see how savvy we are at recycling. And I can guarantee you'll learn something, because I do every time. So please join me in welcoming Dave Fisher.
Well, it's great to be here in the community. I've at one time lived for 10 years here in Meridian and very much enjoyed it. To give you a little perspective, I lived on Ustick Road between Meridian Road and Locust Grove, and I could see the traffic on Fairview when I lived here. So it's changed a little bit, hasn't it? My background in trash is I've worked at landfills, recycling centers, recycling routes, trash routes, portable toilets, medical waste. I've kind of seen a little bit of it all, and in my 30 years, and it's a great industry. So if you have kids or yourself that you're looking for a career, we'd love to have you come down and talk to us about it. So a little bit of a plug for that. So I've also brought Conrad, who does a lot of our public education with us tonight. And really, the 3 R's that we always talk about is reduce, reuse, and then recycle. So we really want people to concentrate on that. First of all, try to reduce what you're doing. Look at what you're buying and the amount of trash that's being generated from that, and try to decide if you're if you're making good decisions. Try to reduce that. And then if you can reuse anything more than once, we very much encourage that. And then once you've kind of been through that process, then recycle it. And typically in recycling programs, it kind of sets the mood of the community. So it's a community-driven program. The community defines what they want to recycle and what they don't want to recycle. And then we try to provide markets or find markets to where we can sell that product so it can be reused. So, and that's really where Dave Dean and his group are involved. So as you remember, years ago, we had the green 18-gallon bin, and you source separated it at the curb. And you put it in the little grocery sacks, the paper bags. You got to the point where you had to start asking for those at the store because they wouldn't give them to you. Albertsons was very excited to see us not doing that anymore because we got a lot of paper bags from them. And so we really tried to make it more convenient by what we do commingled. So we got a bigger cart, and you could put everything in the cart together. And what we found was when we did these programs, we got a lot more people participating, and the amount of the material that we got was significantly more than when it was source separated. So what happens now is that you mingle it all together. When we take it to Western Recycling out on Cole Road, their job, it's a little bit like a Willy Wonka chocolate factory, bells and whistles and things going on, but they have all these people and machines that then try to pull it all apart and separate it so then they can sell it into different markets. Cardboard goes one direction. Plastics 1s and 2s try to go in another direction. Mixed paper goes another direction. Tin and aluminum goes somewhere else. So they pull it apart, they bale it, and then ship it to people that want to use it, reuse it, and reuse it to manufacture. So this all went very well for years and years and years. In the last 6-8 months, we were hearing things about China changing what they were going to accept. And since they're the largest user or buyer of recycling material coming out of particularly Western United States, we knew that that was going to have an impact. And as it got closer and closer and closer, they gave more definitions. So one of the definitions they gave, and it's in effect in 1st of January, was that the paper like this that you put in your recycle bin, that can have a 0.5% contamination. So what happens is, and what we're talking about is we're trying to get this paper as clean as we can so the end user will actually buy it. It used to be that it didn't have to be that clean and the purchaser would still take it. But now it's a 0.5%. Unfortunately, the machines that are used at Western can't tell really the difference between this piece of paper that's floating down the line and this film over here on the board that Conrad's going to talk about. It kind of thinks it's the same thing, and so that contaminates the load and really decreases the value of the material. So what we're trying to do in the Valley then, with the changes that came effective January 1st, is we're really trying to define a couple of things. One is, what is the trash that we're seeing in the bin each week, and it runs over 10%. So 10% of the effort that Western Recycling is using to unmingle these things and pull them apart to prepare them, they're having to deal with just things that are just flat trash, boards, grass clippings, bowling balls. Dave could probably tell you all sorts of things. You know, we love your old bowling ball, we just don't want it in the recycling cart. And so if we're spending a lot of effort doing that, it's not being used to be productive and to really pull out what we want to do. The other thing, that becomes very expensive trash. So instead of you taking that trash and putting it in your trash bin so then we can take it up to Ada County to the landfill, now we're taking it to Western. They're applying a lot of manpower and machinery power to this material to pull it out. And so it becomes very, very expensive trash, and that's over 10% of the total material that we pick up in your green cart with the red lid is just flat trash. And so we're trying to reduce that by helping people understand. The other thing that about 1% is what we're talking about. Is the plastics that are marked 3 through 7s are about 1% of what goes in that cart. And we have no place to be able to sell that now. It used to be that it could be bundled up with the higher grade 1s and 2s and sold together. And because there was enough value in the 1s and 2s, that it kind of overrode that, and it kind of, it covered up a little bit of some bad behavior because we had people that were willing to buy it, and that's just not the case anymore. So we're asking people to pull the 3 through 7s and the film that should have never been in there and just the flat trash out, and that will reduce the volume of really things that we don't want by hopefully up to, what, 12%, Dave? And that would really, really help, because what it does, not only is it do that, but it's not going in with this paper and contaminating the paper, and it creates a better value stream for the paper. So that's what we're doing. All the communities in the valley are working towards that. The recycle bin with the 3 through 7s, it's going to take every community, it's going to take a little bit different path and take a little bit longer or shorter time to come to that. But that's really what we're asking our partners in recycling to do, so we can clean this stream up and make it a viable option for people. We're trying to keep the cost down by cleaning it up. Conrad, do you want to do your demonstration?
Thank you, Dave. Mayor Tammy, thank you for having us here today. Okay, let's get into the fun stuff. I've been stockpiling this material for weeks, so I'm happy to be here because I can get rid of it afterwards. As Mayor Tammy pointed out, that we're only talking about plastics here. That's the only thing that's changing. We're still going to recycle cardboard and cans and paper, and that's really high quality, valuable stuff. And as Dave mentioned, it's the plastics with the lower quality that's kind of bringing the rest of this high quality stuff down. So if we can fine tune and only recycle the high grade quality 1s and 2 plastics, we can actually raise the value of everything else and make it a much more successful program. So that's why I'm here today. And I'm standing next to the red lid, which indicates recycling. If you do not have one of these, please call Meridian City and we'll be happy to get one out to you. I also have with me a green lid, and you probably have one of these at your house too. It goes on top of your green cart, and as you can see, it's for garbage. And what I'd like to do today, again, is focus on plastics and what's changing with plastics and how we're going to recycle plastics differently. And I'd like to chop that up into 3 different phases. The first phase would be what I have here taped onto the garbage lid. And then next I'd like to move into the pile here, and I'm sorry for those of you in the back that can't see, but I will leave this up after the presentation, and we can wander around. I'll stay up here and answer questions, and I'll also hold them up so hopefully everybody can see. But the second phase will be to pull out the things that we are recycling now but can no longer recycle from the plastic family. And then what will be left will be going through the remaining high quality 1s and 2s. And when I say 1s and 2s, we're really focused on more than just 1s and 2s. We're actually a little more specific than number 1 and number 2. We're looking at bottles and jugs that are labeled number 1 and number 2. All right. So we'll start right here. In this plastic family, we call these soft plastics, and you can tell why, right? They're not rigid, they compact, they flatten out. This material we've never been able to accept in the recycling stream, and it's what started pulling down the other rigid plastics. And and so by pulling these out, if you're not already doing that, today's a really good day to start pulling these out of your recycling stream and putting them in the trash. And I'll review these materials in case you can't quite tell. Right here we have a grocery bag. So I get asked on a daily basis if we can recycle a grocery bag, and the answer is no. That is trash. Dave mentioned reduce, reuse, and recycle. So that's a good strategy there. If you can reduce these by getting more permanent shopping bags or reusing them around the house, carry items. That's always a good one, but you cannot recycle the shopping bags. Next to the shopping bag is a Ziploc baggie that I got from the deli, and it has other paper there to separate the cheese slices. And this is not recyclable either. It's a lot like the sandwich bag, Ziploc baggie. We can't recycle that. Inside the Ziploc baggie is a wrapper for fruit snacks. Now, I'm not going to pick on fruit snacks because I love fruit snacks. But it's just a wrapper, and it applies to all wrappers. Chocolate bars, other candy bars, bags of candy, all that wrapper type material. It's not recyclable. We also have food packaging. So food packaging here, and this was some noodles and some string cheese, yogurt tube, again, a soft plastic. So we can't recycle those, belongs in the garbage. Chip wrapper, saran wrap, a sports drink that it looks like it was in a foil container, you know, like a Capri Sun. That is not recyclable. A can holder, not recyclable. This is a chip bag or cracker bag that was inside a cardboard box. You finish your crackers, you want to recycle the cardboard box, but first, please remove the liner that was inside. Same thing goes with cereal. So you want to make sure you take out the plastic bag before recycling the box. And up here is taped down pretty good, but bubble wrap or packaging material. You don't want to recycle any of that packaging material. It's either going to be styrofoam or a bubble type material. So no styrofoam peanuts, no bubble wrap. This is kind of a bigger size there, bubble, but they make the smaller ones that you always pop and try to scare your friend with. So we're going to eliminate all the packaging material. So that goes in the trash. Over here I have a meat tray that you get at the market. That's made out of styrofoam. You've never been able to recycle that, so please throw that in the trash. And speaking of styrofoam, I have a styrofoam cup, and this is also trash, so please don't try to recycle that. Even if it has a number on it, it's still styrofoam, and we can't recycle it. I think that covers, oh, yeah, okay. And another one that people are often confused on is fast food drinks, the lids and the straws. So we can't recycle those either. So please throw those away. And along those lines is a spoon, plastic spoon, or any picnicware, really. So plastic spoons, knives, forks. Mayor mentioned the napkins and paper plates and those type of items, plastic plates. So picnicware, we don't want that in the recycling stream either. So please remember to put that in the trash. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move over to the middle of the pile. And what I have here, for those that can't see, it's pretty much a combination of the items up there on the screen. And what I'm going to do is, a month ago, I was recycling all of these in my recycling cart, and it was okay. But now we have the new changes, and we're not allowed to recycle some of these items anymore. So I'm going to pull those items out and explain why we're not recycling those anymore. And then what's remaining, I'll show you and we'll see what kind of difference there is. Okay, so before I begin, let's review. I said bottles and jugs are the first qualifier, so it has to be a bottle or a jug, and the second qualifier is it has to be a number 1 or a number 2 plastic. So I have right here a milk jug, so that meets one of the criteria, but it's numbered to 7. I know. When I brought this in a few weeks ago, I didn't even look at the number. I was like, oh yeah, that's going to be recyclable. And then I previewed all my items. I said, oh wow, I can't recycle that. So I learned that one just recently. So it is a jug, but it is also number 7. So that goes in the trash pile. This one would be a body wash or a shower item. And it's not a bottle. I guess it could be considered a bottle. It's not a jug. But it also doesn't have a number on it. So an item that doesn't have an identifying 1 or 2, it cannot be recycled. So it goes in the trash. And even if you're not sure and it's unidentifiable, like you see the symbol, but you can't really tell what number that is, when in doubt, throw it out. So, and that's okay. Nobody's going to send you a fine saying you threw that out. We'd rather it be right and good quality plastic than to be wrong and have it contaminate the good recycling. So this one is not marked. If it is marked, I cannot see it, so I'm going to throw it away. Ooh, tough decision. Okay, I'm going with the water bottle. So, no more water bottles. Doesn't matter the brand, it doesn't matter the number, no more water bottles. This used to be, and probably still is, the biggest problem in the recycling, but this came next. And it wasn't necessarily this brand. I'm not trying to pick on this company. But the cheaper ones started to come out. And you probably recognize one when you drink out of it or refill it and drink out of it or leave it in the sun for 5 minutes, come back and drink out of it. You can tell the difference. But the problem is there's so many of them and it's not as easy to tell all the time. So the problem is the cheaper ones flatten out to be a piece of paper or the same thickness piece of paper. And that's what Dave was talking about earlier, the plastic getting mixed in with the paper. It's also these bottles getting squished down to the thickness of a piece of paper, going through the waste stream, the recycling stream, and commingling or not getting separated out from the paper. So we need to just go ahead, and I know it's going to be tough, but we need to let go of our water bottles, and we're going to put them in the trash. Please remember to reduce and reuse when it comes to water bottles. Okay, so this is a berry tray. I had blackberries in it earlier this week. And you also buy berries in those green mesh trays, plastic. And it used to be you could recycle those. And you used to be able to recycle these as well. However, it doesn't meet the qualifiers anymore. So it's not a bottle, it's not a jug, it's not a 1, it's not a 2. I think it's a 5. So it doesn't meet the qualifiers, and we're going to have to put it in the trash. But it's also another example. So it's not just a berry tray, it's also a clamshell. Yeah, it sounds funny, huh? But yeah, clamshell, get it? You'll see these more oftenly with takeout food. Salads, they'll have the black bottom and the clear top, but they commonly have a hinge there. We call those clamshells. and it's no longer recyclable. So remember, bottles, jugs, 1s and 2s, and this does not meet any of that. Okay, cups, disposable cups. 5 and 6, I think, are the number. But they're cups, they're not bottles or jugs, so they don't meet the qualifiers either. Again, think of ways to reduce and reuse, but no longer recyclable. Okay. Another cup, but a yogurt cup. So yogurt cups are not a bottle or a jug. And it's number 5, I believe, but it's not recyclable any longer. Oh, here's a good example. This is a bottle, a juice bottle even. It's one of those that's unclearly marked, so it doesn't have a number on it. So it meets one of the requirements of being a bottle, and a juice bottle at that, but it doesn't have a number, so I can't trust it. I'm going to have to put it in the trash. And, okay. Another thing that we used to recycle are tubs. There's a margarine tub, butter tub, but it's, again, not a bottle or a jug. It's not a number 1 or a number 2. It's not just margarine, it's the cream cheese tubs. What else? Sour cream, like the example up there. No longer recyclable. Okay, so you guessed it, what's left? The good news, that's what's left. These items over here are what we can recycle now, and what we want to focus on recycling, because this is what's going to make everything much more improved. I'll go through them. So we'll start with the jugs. This is a juice jug, and it is marked with a 1. Thing is, though, we still are not recycling caps. So, which is a 5. And when you take the cap off, it's no longer part of a jug or a bottle. So, by itself, it doesn't qualify. But this does. It's getting positive. My Pepsi bottle, it qualifies. It's a 1. Again, no lid. And here's my Coke bottle. It also qualifies. It's a 1. Now, you might be asking, well, let me do this one here first. And then my sports drink bottle, it's also a 1. Kind of thirsty. But I'm going to remove the cap. Okay, so, but you might ask, okay, well, why these bottles I can recycle but not my water bottle? Like I mentioned with the water bottles, they're making the cheaper ones. And it's the cheaper ones that are ruining it for the higher quality water bottles. So these are really good quality plastics for the soda pops and the juices and the sports drinks. So we can go ahead and continue to recycle those. But we can no longer recycle the water bottles. This might be a hybrid jug bottle. I don't know. It's debatable, but it does qualify. So it's either a bottle or a jug and a number 1. Milk jug. Milk jugs are still good. This is a number 2. So we can still recycle that. I wonder if I set this up. 2-liter pop bottles, those are okay. It's a bottle, large bottle. It's number 1. Remove the cap. Okay. And detergent bottles, jugs. This is good quality plastic. Make sure it's empty and clean. It is a number 2. I'm going to remove the lid. Okay, and put the lid in the garbage. All right, and a water jug. So I've said a couple times we can't do water bottles, but we can reduce and reuse water bottles, and that might help. So here's an idea. Here's a big water jug. This is a number 1, and I confirmed with Mr. Dean that it is okay for recycling. It's got a broad enough surface and thick enough and high quality enough in plastic that it will get through the sorting system. Again, this is a water jug, but you can buy it in quantities like this and refill your water bottles that you walk around with. So that's a good substitute. Instead of buying 2 dozen water bottles, you can get 1 jug, recycle that 1 jug, and you won't have to worry about throwing away the 24 water bottles. Now, before my conclusion, there's only 3, 6, 9 items in this recycling section. Only 9. I haven't counted how many are over there in the non. But when you compare the two, what do you think is making the bigger difference? The recycle side or the trash? Which one's taking up more space, I guess I should ask? The recycle side. Because look at how big and bulky these are. All the trash items are smaller and they compact much easier. These are taking up way more airspace and they're of higher grade, so they're going to be more successful in the recycling program and the stream and the recycling loop altogether. So it's really key to make it simple like this, limit it to a few items that are going to be really good for recycling, continue to help the environment, minimize what trash goes into the recycling, and a cleaner recycling stream leads to a greener recycling stream. Dave?
Thank you. You can stay up here too. So, all right, I actually learned some things too. Thank you, Conrad. So, as you can see, what we're trying to do is clean the stream up. That cleans up the paper that we're trying to get, but it also adds to the quality of the materials. Now, 1s and 2s, Dave, they can be recycled and reprocessed domestically. Is that true? Yeah, so that's an important issue too, is that those 1s and 2s that we're really going after can be reprocessed and remanufactured here domestically, and that's really what we're trying to do. Ultimately, we're trying to do more and more as close to where they're generated as possible. So that's another important part of that. So with that, we can stand for questions. And Dave, I don't know if you want to join us. And we're kind of on the trucking side. And what happens in the cart once it shows up at the recycling center. Nothing like being put on the spot, huh, Dave? I called him this afternoon and said, you know, you probably ought to be here. So any questions? Yeah, why don't we start right here?
Okay, this is kind of a double-barrel question. I'm thinking about litter. Because a lot of the things that we can no longer recycle are the things that most frequently end up as soliciting comments with regard to just, you know, what we do about the litter. The other part of that question is that, as Carmen was mentioning about, the nice thing about what we can recycle is that it takes up less space in the landfill than some of the things that are being considered as garbage. But what occurs to me is a lot of what is now being considered garbage still is using resources that are being wasted. But I've always thought that a big part of recycling was to reuse things so that you didn't have to keep manufacturing more. And it also seemed like a lot of manufacturers of things like yogurt cups, for example. Yogurt cups used to be made out of paper. And I don't know if the transition to putting yogurt in plastic cups was because they could be recycled, as opposed to any other reason for which they would have made that switch over. But if they've made the switch so that it could switch to something that could be recycled, and now it can be recycled, again, we're talking about a litter problem and or a waste of resources. So throw that open to any of the three. You could comment.
No, I think you hit it on the head. That's, you know, obviously the best thing we can do is reduce what we're doing and reuse it. And it's interesting, you know, as you see, there's been a change in the supermarkets. You've seen when they do more and more fresh cut, and that's changed. And it's really a lot of the packaging is driven by consumer demand. We're seeing more cardboard. Dave's talked about this because of so many people that are buying things on Amazon and having boxes shipped to their house. So we're seeing more cardboard because of that. And I just heard today that you can go in, there's something on Amazon, you can go in and click and ask to have minimized packaging, and they're willing to do that. So if you go in your account and click on that, they'll try to minimize the packaging that's coming to you. So they're actually reacting to that. So yeah, we need us as consumers to make good decisions, and I think that drives the decision makers in those products, and they'll start finding solutions to those. So thank you for your comments. Dave, did you or Conrad have any comment? Or?
No,
okay.
That's totally true. And like you said with Amazon, you get a box this big sometimes and it has something about this big in it. So, you know, there are ways to reduce and, you know, use things more wisely. And I'm sorry, and I'm just concurring with what he said. Is that, you know, that's and the consumer is going to drive what they produce to, you know, put this stuff in. I think it converted to plastic mostly because it's cheaper. So.
Has there been any thought given to places like around schools or just around heavy foot traffic areas, having maybe like corner trash cans so that things might end up in a trash can rather than on the street? I don't know that it really is affected so much by the recycle thing, because if someone's going to throw something in the street, whether it can be recycled or necessarily have anything to do with it, but it is something that is part of the refuse issue that maybe this is as good a place as any to bring that up.
Yep. Yep. Well, I know in working in the industry around the country, the Boise Valley is as clean a place as I've ever been. In fact, we hear that a lot of people that come into the valley can't believe how clean it is. So it's really a lot of people doing exactly that, caring about their communities and taking, you know, instead of dropping it on the ground, make 2 or 3 steps to a garbage can or a recycling container. So thank you for that. So over here.
This is going to kill me because I recycle everything. And I thought in Boise they had said something about all those things that you can't recycle, they're going to find another way of recycling them, like turning them into something else, like grinding them up for cement or something. Is there any plan on eventually being able to do something with all of those other homes?
Certainly, I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of communities are struggling with this as to what do you do with these materials. Some departments of environmental, like DEQ's, Department of Environmental Quality, for some states have just said, you know, it's okay to start throwing things away that we used to recycle. And really, as a Treasure Valley, we want to kind of step up beyond that and do what's best. And so each community will decide what is best for them and their constituents. And City of Boise is working on a way to take all those 3 through 7s, the films and that, and come up with a way to keep them out of the waste stream. And I think that's going to spread over. I know the Meridian SWAC is talking about it. They've had a presentation today on it. City of Boise is looking at rolling it out in a situation where they will provide a year's worth of bags. That's one option of doing that. The other option is making it available to your citizens to buy them in the store. Dow Chemical has talked about bringing these orange bag program to the valley, and part of that would be they would put them in Albertsons or Winco or wherever, different shopping places where you could go in and buy those, and then you could put your 3 through 7s in there, your films, those sort of things, and put them in the bag, and then those would go in your recycling cart. So we're working through that issue. City of Boise vetted out, to their satisfaction at least, a processor in the Salt Lake area that says they can take that material, heat it up, and produce diesel fuel with it. So their officials have vetted it to the point that they're comfortable with it, and I think each community will have that same opportunity to see if they're comfortable with that technology and presenting that to their citizens. So that'll be something that'll be coming. I'm sure the SWAC will gather their thoughts, and they'll bring it to the city council and bring it to the citizens of Meridian, and so you can decide what you want your system to look like. And that's really the nice thing about that is cities tailor their programs to fit their needs, and it's not a one fit for everyone, but it really is an opportunity to do what you want to do in your community. So, and that'll be coming. There'll be more information on that this spring. So thank you for that. That's a great question. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I have 2 questions, things I'm not quite sure what to do with. All of the paper that I shred in my shredder, what do I put that in?
Well, the shredded paper is actually totally recyclable, but in our system with the MRV, it drops through a screen with the dirt and all that stuff, and it ends up in the trash. Now, we can, shredded paper in itself, it is recyclable. We have a shredding company that shreds confidential records, and we do recycle all that, but the stuff that comes in the MRF ends up in the trash because, yes.
Or could they bring it to Western Recycling if they wanted to?
Yeah, you could. You could bring it there as long as it's clean shred, yeah.
So magazines are okay. What about the staples? Do you have to take?
Staples are fine.
Okay, good, that's all I want to know.
Yep.
Great. Ma'am, and then back there.
She was talking about it for shredding. I thought we were to be able to put it in a paper bag and staple it and throw it in the recycle. I thought that's how it was supposed to.
Well, that doesn't really work too good because, like I say, a lot of times the bags might rupture and it gets loose out there. Plus, it has to then be manually pulled out. The plastic bag is trash, so yes.
Where did you say we can take it? Just one other question.
You could take it to Western Recycling on South Cole across from Costco there.
One other question, like the Frito-Lay cheese that they sell, it's like a can, but it's not a can. That's garbage, right?
Are you talking like Pringles or something like that? Or? Oh, yeah, that's, I'm sure that, yeah, it's a 3 through 7 or something. Yeah, don't recycle that. Oh, oh, is it at a 10? Well, yeah, if it's got. Yeah, no, not that.
use it all on your laundry, what's left. And then between loads, keep it upside down on a slit, drain out as much as you can, put that in there. And then on your next load, run the water, stick it under there, rinse it out, and just keep emptying bubbles into your washing machine. Get as much out of there as you can, and it'll be clean.
Yeah, main thing is we don't want a lot of liquid left in there because. No, I mean, kind of lady says, and that's kind of what I do, is at the end, when there's not much left, I leave it upside down, and it'll fill the cap. And, yeah, if you can rinse it a little bit after that, make sure there's, it's not, turn it upside down so it drains. That's the main thing, so.
Great idea, thank you.
Yes.
So I have to be smarter than my 10-year-old. So on the big recycling, on the ones and twos, you mentioned the lids. Do I have to take the plastic support piece of that lid off as well? Or do I have to take the labels off?
No, no, that's too much work.
You'd be like super recycler. No, I think we're fine.
We have a question on Facebook Live. Curious as to why Boise is different. Don't we have access to the same facilities? So right now, they're still recycling the plastics 3 through 7. So might want to explain that. And they also said that Boise accepts styrofoam.
Currently, Boise does not accept styrofoam, so please do not put styrofoam in your cart. We don't think we've ever done that. Yes, thank you. And thank you for the question. Thanks for watching on Facebook, is it? Yep. Okay, great. Yeah, it's all a matter of timing. The prohibition on 3 through 7's plastics is affecting everyone. It's not just this valley. It's not just the state of Idaho. It's not just even America. It's worldwide. It's having an impact. And so just different communities are doing this a little bit different, and the timing's just a little bit different. But ultimately, we're asking everyone to take the 3 through 7's out of their cart. The city of Boise, it's just going to be in the next month or 6 weeks, they'll be asking them to do the same thing. Again, this orange bag program, very cutting edge. There's only a couple of communities in the whole country that are involved in this. And really what's been happening with that in the past is this waste to energy. So some of these orange bag programs were actually taking that and then incinerating it. Using the waste energy was actually taking that type of material and turning it into electricity by incinerating it. So that's a kind of a cutting edge solution to this. And like I say, the different communities will sort that out through the next couple of months and come up with what works best for their community, and then make that available, and we'll educate out to that. So again, it's just a timing issue in a very short period of time here that there's going to be some differences, and but we're all basically going to end up in the same place as far as 3 through 7's, styrofoam, things like that, going into your recycling cart.
So Dave, if everyone, no one's taking 3 through 7, and Boise's throwing it into, with the 1s and 2s, what is happening with them? Is it contaminating the 1s and 2s, that those aren't even usable? What's happening
With that? So yeah, and Dave could speak to this, but what's happening is, and what's happened in the past is, that all gets baled together. So what we're trying to reduce is the amount of the 3 through 7's in that plastic bale that then gets sent to another facility where they use these real, very expensive high-end optical sorters to sort that. So the less material we have to begin with that they have to sort out makes our material more economically viable. So the 3 through 7's, for years and years, that could go to China, and they were using it. And sometimes they're using it for energy there. They're not taking that material anymore. Yep. There's many communities that are taking it to the landfill right now. So, and ours is going over to the Portland area.
Some of it's going to the the Tacoma area and some down actually to Logan, but everybody's saying that, yeah, they're stacking it up and now they're hauling to the landfill probably, so it's no place to go with it.
So regardless of where you live, the best practice would be to get used to this new recycling.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's where it's the direction everyone's going, just each community is doing it at their own pace and as they vet what they want their citizens to do. But eventually that's where we all need to be. So, thank you. Ma'am?
On these water bottles, what if you do come across one that is a 1 or 2? Are none of them 1 to 2?
Have you found any that are?
So, yeah, a lot of them are. It's
Yeah.
the confusion of one. Here, thank you. The thing is. Oh yes, yes. Water bottles. So the water bottles that are 1s and 2s, why are we not recycling those? Well, one, they're still small and smash, get compacted and mixed in there easily. So that's the quick answer. The other answer is, I mentioned the cheaper water bottles. So I might look at one water bottle the same as I look at another water bottle. And if I'm told I can recycle water bottles, I'm going to recycle both of them. Without looking for a number. It's a water bottle, I'm going to recycle it. It might not have one. It doesn't. The problem is then now you're really getting mixed messages, and a person that just wants to recycle their water bottle, they hear that, okay, well, I can recycle some of them. I'm not going to look at my water bottle. I'm just going to put it in the recycling. And now you're back to where we started with a bunch of, yeah. So then we're back where we started with 3s through 7s and water bottles contaminating the really good stuff that we want. Yeah, good question.
Way back there and then
Besides the plastics, are there certain paper items that you see being put in recycle bin that are not recyclable?
Well, there are a few things that you want to watch out for. One that comes to mind is that I know there's some confusion on the milk cartons that are the kind of the fiberboard type. They call it Tetra Pak, and that's a banned item now too, and it should not be in there. That's one of the main ones, and I don't know if, yeah. So, but you know what I'm talking about is a typical milk jug. That's one of the big things that we need to make sure that stays out. So, but most of the rest of the paper is generally pretty good. It's junk mail, it's magazines, it's newspapers, it's, you know, envelopes with, yes. Yep, that's fine. Yes, it's fine. Yeah. Yep, that's no.
Oh, right, I'm sorry. The bigger the better, right?
Yeah, leave them whole because the machine that pulls those out does it because it's three-dimensional. And so you want that dimension on them. Yeah, I wouldn't flatten them. It's up to you. If you got room not to flatten it, it doesn't matter.
From the people, pick it up, please. Yeah, please do, just because, so we can get it in the truck. Yeah. Once it gets to the mill, they can handle it.
Dave, I have a couple of questions. One is, I think somebody else asked earlier about stores that, as a convenience, let you bring the plastic bags back to them. Dry cleaners do the same thing. Do those ultimately end up in the landfill then, or is there some way that they can be reused, turned into fuel or compost or something?
Certainly, Dave.
Or do they end up just going into a landfill then?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I think they're getting, huh? Trex, okay. it's, I guess a lot of that's going to Trex, you know, they make the decking and stuff like that. Yeah, if that stuff's, you know, clean and dry like that and by itself, it's definitely recyclable, but just not in the program we have.
So the best thing to do is if you have a plastic bag that you got from Albertsons or Fred Meyer's, to just take it back, and if they
Yep.
accept it, just leave it there.
Yep.
Well, that's helpful to know. And then the second question I had is a follow-up to a question someone asked earlier, which is, um, the city of Boise, I guess, is looking to some type of experimental or pilot program where some of their plastics can be sorted differently and then maybe turned into diesel fuel or something. And somebody referred to that earlier today as a possibility maybe Meridian is looking into. And then, but I heard someone else say that the best practice is to keep separating things out no matter what the city of Boise does. So do you have any advice for us who would like to do something more aggressive in the recycling area than just continuing to send stuff to the landfill? Do you have any advice or suggestions for those of us that would like to do something, like maybe stop using plastic at all? I mean, I'm open to any ideas if you have some suggestions.
Yeah, and like say the 3 R's, and one is reduce. You know, that's the biggest impact we can have in a reuse. But I know the mayor was looking for a super recycler to be involved on a committee, so we'd love to have you involved.
I noticed that some restaurants now are, instead of giving your food when you take it home in a styrofoam or plastic container, they're actually using cardboard containers. And those are the kinds of things that I'm wondering if we as a society could start to consider doing things like that. I spent 5 weeks in Brazil and everything there is recycled. I couldn't, it's like what the mayor was saying about her family from the Netherlands. Now, maybe their economy is different, and maybe they're not sending things to China, but my other question is, are there any other markets besides China for the kinds of things that right now we're saying we can't recycle anymore?
You bet, and I know Dave is starting to ship into Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, India. But these plants are major capital investments and take years and years to design and build and get operational. So with China's change in policy, it's just going to take some time, and it's not just something that happens overnight. The other thing I would really like to see is that innovative programs like this Renewalogy that City of Boise is looking at, and that your SWAC is looking at and will be bringing to the City Council and to you, is this a technology that is sound that you want to participate in? And things like that are homegrown. Renewalogy, this company, really isn't in the business of processing materials. What they're in the business of doing is building processing plants, and they're selling them into Canada now. And so eventually, you know, if that technology proves out and it makes sense for the Treasure Valley, maybe someday, and if it's not that, maybe something else. I think a lot of smart people are thinking about this. You know, situations like this drive innovation, and I think we'll start seeing more and more of that come forward. So, and I hope it's done locally here. That would be the very best for me, as it produces jobs locally. We're not shipping it a long ways away, and particularly if it produces a product that we can use locally, that just really makes a lot of sense. So we would love to have you involved in the process, and any one of you that would like to be involved in this process, love to have people's input. Lots of minds come up with great decisions and good ideas, so we're looking for those. So thank you. Yes?
So my name is Andrea Pogue, and I serve on the Meridian Advisory SWAC Commission. And as we've been tasked to look into Boise's program, the Orange Bag Program, and address the global crisis with plastic and trying to figure out what to do with our program, some of the facts we invited Boise representative into a special SWAC meeting, asked a lot of questions, got a lot of really good information about this program. There's a lot of reasons to be hopeful for it, but Boise is also going to pay quite a bit for it. So just to launch the program, Boise is subsidizing it with $700,000 in addition to the grant they got. And so it's unclear at this time exactly how this program will vet out after the initial first 2 years that Boise's willing to subsidize it and has that grant money available to buy the bags. So on the commission, we are charged with researching it fully. At our meeting today, we spoke directly to the CEO of Runology, which is the company in Utah to which Boise's orange bags will be shipped. And then they convert it to diesel. We talked to her about their program and about whether or not she had any concerns about the potential for contamination in those orange bags. Because right now, at her company, the materials she's receiving are coming from MRFs that have optic sorters. So they get rid of all the bad plastics or can sort out the ones in the tubes or whatever else could contaminate it. So what she's getting is relatively clean material. But the case, it's unknown whether residents charged with sorting, like Conrad just showed us, the 3 through 7s from the 1 to 2s, will put in the orange bag just those 3 through 7s, because the CEO of Runology said if there's even a number 1 bottle or a number 2 bottle in that orange bag when they open it up that they have to sort, that creates what? It creates cost, and that cost will be charged back to Boise or any other municipality participating in the program. If they get enough contamination that they have to take it to their landfill, all that will come back to the municipalities as extra cost to the program. Another thing we've learned is that in order to get these orange bags from Western down to Runology in Utah, they have to be shipped very carefully. This has to be dry products within the orange bags. The orange bags have to be dry. They have to be shipped dry because her formula to shred the plastic and burn the plastic to create the diesel fuel, they have a very small amount of moisture that they can have in that system. So there's just a really, it sounds hopeful, wonderful. I think Meridian Solid Waste Advisory Commission is going to be watching with great interest, like we're doing with Boise's compost program, trying to let them have a little bit of experience with it so that we can make a solid, sound decision to what to recommend from our Solid Waste Advisory Commission to City Council for what we should be doing here in Meridian. But right now, what is being told for everyone to sort your 3 through 7s and get them in the trash, that's still a good practice for anyone in Boise because they're ultimately this spring going to be sorting out their 3 through 7. So they might as well start it now, help everybody in the valley, right? Preserve our 1s and 2s, clean them up as fast as possible because they are our valuable recyclables. And in the city of Meridian, we have what's called the Community Recycling Fund that we cherish. And that is when people at home recycle clean material and it gets processed and sold. The revenue that comes back is shared between Republic Services and the city of Meridian, with Republic Services giving the city of Meridian 80% of that net revenue. And then we put that money right back into the public in the form of public projects that benefit the public. So we have our baseball bleachers in Settlers Park, and we have recyclable benches and tables at the pool, and we've put hundreds of thousands of dollars back into this community, and that's a wonderful thing. So for Meridian, we really care about our 1s and 2s, and we really want the 3s and 7s out. We hope Boise launches their program not in April, but let's get it going in February so that our 1s and 2 streams can be as clean as possible, and we can hopefully make some money off of it. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for me, but I'm available afterwards.
Thanks, Andrea. Good job. Nice done. Yeah. Any other questions? Ma'am, and then we'll.
Is there a resource like this available on the slideshow that we can take home or to our places of employment that can help encourage others to follow this practice?
Yeah, we can get this available on the city website. It's on the city website.
City.org, click on City News and Needs. It says recycling changes, and we have FAQs. We have this postcard on there, and we'll post this video as well.
That's all the education you guys are gonna do.
No. No, we have,
We included letters from the utility bills
Yep.
to all Meridian residents this month, and then your public services will be following up with quite a few marketing materials.
Yep.
I'll let you speak to that.
yeah, we have a whole community outreach program that is coming, and we're designing it right now, and it'll be coming your way too. So, and it really is, even if China had not done something, it was time to really look at this again and really try to get the amount of trash out of the recycling stream, because that's really even more than the 3 through 7s. 3 through 7s are 1%. The film, like over on the trash, are about 1%, and the trash is over 10%. So that's really, really the important thing is wood, grass does not go in your recycling cart. So.
Is there going to be any education in the schools? Because I know one can say something to my kids, it goes in one ear and out the other. Ground level is cool and everything else, maybe they could refer.
You bet. You know, Conrad, we work real closely with the schools through the whole valley, and there's a curriculum that is developed, and yes, we're going to be working on that to update that also, so we can people know what they're doing. Kids are the best recyclers, so.
I just think it's kind of confusing up here because it shows the bottles and jugs have lids on them. So just,
Good catch.
better to say like no lids or caps.
Yep.
When I first saw that, I was confused.
Nope, that's a good catch. Thank you.
I would like to thank you all for being here tonight, and there will be time for additional questions if you have some. I know, I could tell that Conrad speaks to kids, and, he's very thorough, and we know bottles and jugs, no lids. And that was, we need to update our picture up there. So thank you, and thank you for your passion about this. Thank you for wanting to do the right thing, and for spending your evening with us, finding out more about how we can all be better at recycling and making sure that the efforts are making a difference, and they're not in the end going up and landing up in the landfill. So we thank you for spending your evening with us, and look forward to any additional questions that you might have, but thank you for being here.